Welcome back. Very much like Jai and Ux, I'm going to keep it sort of intimate, conversational. If you have questions, don't wait to the end. Just like literally talk to me. We're going to be chatting. I'm going to be bouncing off you guys, asking questions. Yeah, I want it to be interactive. I'm talking to you today about principles. This was born out of first helping facilitate the recent internship at Virtus, but then also thinking back to when I was that age at uni, going through sort of different mentorships, trying to find my way, and sort of realizing that like young students that are going through tertiary or formal education, they get given a really, really good foundation of theoretical knowledge, but just struggle to reconcile that knowledge into practical application. And it's a dead giveaway when you start to work with, when you're now an experienced person within the industry and you start to work with some of these younger people finding their way. It's a no-brainer when some of the questions they begin to ask you, it sort of sets off alarm bells in your head. It's like, well, hang on, I'm unsure if you have a good grasp of the fundamental principles that underpin everything we do in not just the health and fitness industry, but in life. Some of the questions might be, you know, how do you decide what exercise to do for X outcome? How many sets and reps do you do? How many days a week should you be training? How long should you be spending in the gym? That these things, like they're hunting for objective truths, which when you're dealing with chaotic, unpredictable systems on top of systems on top of systems, aka human beings, they rarely, if ever, exist. So then it begs the question, how do you make decisions when dealing with these chaotic systems? And that comes back to your principles, which are your decision-making heuristics. Does anyone know what a principle is? Jai?
A guiding belief, like a foundational belief.
Yeah.
Like those little ideas built up.
Yeah, like they're just fundamental truisms that they're founded within pretty good bodies of literature and evidence, and they're applicable across many fields. Mine are going to pertain more to training, so I'm going to present to you today, not necessarily to educate, because I think you guys do have a really good grasp of the fundamental principles, but rather to inspire and create conversation, inspire you to maybe dig deeper into what your decision-making heuristics are for not just health, fitness, coaching, but life as well. Like what do you lean on in times of confusion or when you need to make a decision? I love this quote by Ray Dalio. A principle helps you think for yourself to decide what you want, what is true, and what should you do to achieve what you want in light of what is true. I underline that think for yourself because I think it's really pertinent in the information age where it can be super easy to get swayed on social media. Or I love the example, Ux, that you had in your presentation. You can have bodybuilder A that's doing low volume, high intensity training, bodybuilder B that's doing the inverse of that, and they're both getting pretty good results. There's many ways to skin a cat, as you said, but then how do you skin the cat when it's almost like information overload? That is your principle. So I'm going to go through my 5. I'd love to chat to you all at some stage tonight, tomorrow, over the retreat. Like what principles guide your decision making? You might not have 5, you might have 1 or 2. We had a good chat on a check-in call. You got a big fucking Notion page full of them. Jamie Smith, one of my other mentors, has 3. Angus Bradley's got 9. But my first one, I first coined it as health comes first, and I dwelled on it a bit. And when we're working with people in elite sport or people that have grand goals of hitting 100 kilos, racing to 90 kilos, trying to get to 80 kilos, eating super physiological amounts of food, perhaps health doesn't always come first. So then I reframed it to adaptation, health, reciprocity, in that the quality of one's health is going to determine the quality of one's adaptations, and the adaptations that one is chasing is going to also affect the quality of one's health. It's applicable across many fields. If you want to show up as your best self at Rod and Gun, Danielle, the quality of your sleep, hydration, the people you're spending the bulk of your time with is going to determine your outputs at Rod and Gun. But then your outputs at Rod and Gun are also going to determine how well you can then fill your own cup up, as we've had conversations about over the past day. yeah, health is just forms the bedrock upon which every other adaptation can be built. But how do we define it? There's many models which we can look at to view health. One that I really like is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, in that the ones at the bottom of that hierarchy are going to be like the big pillars of determining the quality of one's outcomes. That is literally oxygen, food, water, shelter, connection, sleep. It falls apart across different cultures, but again, it's a model that I really like looking at with my clients. Subjectivity is a big one. I actually mentioned something in your presentation. If someone, you could have I may be distorting your words here, but you could have like just the gold standard program, the best thing, but if someone fucking hates it, then why are you giving it to them? And that's one of my big beliefs as well, and why subjectivity is so important. A model I love to use to look at subjectivity is the biopsychosocial model. Who's heard of that? It was proposed by psychiatrists, and it was a challenge to the modern medical system in that, in short, give someone pill, it's going to have this effect on their physiology. Give someone X exercise, it's going to have this effect on their health, function, performance, strength, power, speed. But there are other pillars other than the physiological that we need to look at. And I like to think of these little parts of the BPS model as like a little monocle. Whenever like a young student asks me like, how do you decide what exercise to pick for a certain person? I usually go to like these 3 little monocles and just sort of put them over my eye and just look at the person through a different lens. I'm going to come back to that one. The first lens is like a biological, so that's the human's hardware, their anthropometry, limb length, genetics, any medical conditions, any prior injuries. And I think that's like the one and only monocle that many students, young coaches look through. But the psychological and the social factors are just as if not important. Like your psychological, so that's the human software, like the thoughts. I think to myself, like, I've dislocated my shoulder, dumbbell overhead pressing. Like there's a limit there when I do any overhead pressing variant. And I think to people that have maybe done an injury deadlifting, like there's a little block there when it comes to deadlifting. So what, we're just going to give someone a deadlift or a Bulgarian split squat or whatever exercise just off the basis of this randomized control study said that 15 untrained individuals did Bulgarian split squats and they had better improvements on their 100-meter sprint time compared to fucking hip thrusts. But what are their beliefs about the exercise? I think it's just as important. And then the sociological factors as well, like the environment in which we place the human, just to really exaggerate it. And yeah, just to exaggerate it, like if you're coaching a Balinese person versus an Australian, what do they have access to versus someone in Melbourne? What gym is someone training in? Do they have a training partner? Are they training solo? Their upbringing, I think, are all just as important as give someone leg press, get legs stronger. If you follow Jamie Smith, he's been ranting on social media lately about the narratives of exercise. So not just the exercise itself, but the narrative you wrap it up in is just as important as the exercise intervention itself. Like, if someone's wrapping any exercise intervention up in a narrative that promotes fear, fragility, it's just a massive red flag. And I've just got like 3 examples there. You know, trap bar deadlifts are safer than a conventional deadlift. Keep your back straight to avoid injury. This is the worst case of fucking insert any injury ever that I've ever seen. If you, like, imagine a physio said that to a low back pain client. This is the worst low back pain case I've ever had. Do you think they'll ever get over that? Do you think they'll actually ever heal from their back pain? I think it's unlikely. So I operate out of a lens of just trying to promote optimism rather than instilling just fear, fragility, barriers into the mind of my clients.
How would you word a more positive framing for those sorts of things?
For what one?
Like any of them.
I'll go through all of them. We are doing trap bar deadlifts at the moment. We're doing trap bar deadlifts at the moment just because you're a beginner. It's going to be a little bit easier to teach. It's just going to be a less barrier to entry. Keep your back straight to avoid injury. We're going to try and create some rigidity to improve the efficiency of your lift and get you stronger. And I just wouldn't say the bottom one. Specificity. Ultimately, you've just got to do the thing. If you want to learn to speak Spanish, you got to speak Spanish.
Yeah.
If you want to learn to play guitar, you got to play the guitar. If you want to get your legs stronger, what exercise should you do?
Legs.
Something that trains your legs. Nice, nice. Ultimately, you just need to do the thing. So whether you're consciously thinking about it or not, I can guarantee specificity is a governing principle that determines every single decision that you make. You got to do the thing. It exists on a continuum of general to specific, where specific is the goal outcome itself. If you want to get better at footy, the most specific thing you can do for footy, go and play footy. We're in the weight room, in our coaching calls, like we are existing down this end of the continuum. Very general. I think people take specificity too far is when maybe you're training a tennis athlete and then you see them like fucking trying to crank forehands with a cable machine, or trying to mimic their serves in the gym, or any sport, just trying to mimic your sport in the gym. You're just living in this sort of like no man's land where you're robbing yourself of the ability to train good tennis qualities on the tennis court, but you're also robbing yourself of the ability to train your physical qualities upon which to then potentially give yourself a better base to build your tennis or any other sports capacity. I ripped this from Jamie Smith. I thought it was a really sick way to unpack specificity. He has it as 3 little dials: your psychological specificity, your biological specificity, and your biomechanical. So your psychological, as it pertains to rehab, and I think back to my shoulder, is your rehabilitation creating confidence that you can return to a contact sport without getting injured again? It's all well and good if on paper your shoulder is strong and you're ticking off all this criteria that you can return to play, but are you above the head, ready to roll? Has your rehab, specifically got you psychologically ready? Your biological, energy systems, your proximity to failure. Are you actually training hard enough to elicit the stimulus you want? If you want to get stronger, you better be fucking lifting heavy shit. And then your biomechanical. And from a strength and conditioning standpoint, I don't think about this too much because, again, when we are in the weight room, we are just living so far down that end of the specificity continuum. We are so general that Bulgarian split squats may be a little bit more specific to sprinting because we've got that staggered stance, sort of similar joint angles, but we're so far removed. It's does it matter? What matters more? Someone's thoughts about an exercise, training experience, training age, competency, all that sort of stuff. I'm gonna start ripping through now because I'm running out of time, but we got adherence as my next one. How do we improve someone's adherence?
Enjoyment.
How can we? Yeah, enjoyment. You've got a client that's not showing up. How can you help them adhere?
I feel like if their knowledge is there and their understanding.
Yep. So you can educate?
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. Adherence. Are you showing up? Identify why or why not. It's all well and good to have perfect program. You got to actually do the perfect program. So how can we maximize adherence? Environment, a good training partner, good like-minded individuals, a community gym, accountability, so coaching. A competition, like novice powerlifting meet, incredible to have something to train for. A small win, set really, really small targets that are then going to compound and snowball. My final one is load management, which I'm going to come back to that graph. Load or stress, they're sort of interchangeable. It's two different words that are explaining the same thing. Who can define stress for me, or load, or whatever word you want to use for it?
Just the amount of tension placed on muscle.
Yeah. About 2 more minutes, if that's okay. Yeah. Cool. I said load on a muscle. Has anyone got a opinion different to that?
All the factors that probably come along with doing an exercise, so not just the actual stress on the muscle itself, but also your energy systems deplete a little bit psychologically, the stress it causes you when you're actually doing the exercise, all your systems kind of in account. They get affected just by doing the exercise.
Yeah, so they're like both really good examples of like the external load. The external load. And I've never seen anyone sort of break it down like this until I did Jamie's mentorship, but you've got your external load, which is ultimately the program itself, the tension on the muscle, the weight lifted, the distance ran, the chemical reactions in the body, but then also you've got your internal load as well, and it's how they're responding to that training program, the training stimulus, and that can be influenced by infinite things, which is why I think it's so arrogant for practitioners to say, you know, back sore, it's your glutes, weak glutes, tight hip flexors, weak glutes. Hurt yourself deadlifting, you ran at your back. Like, the factors that influence pain, injury, performance are almost infinite, but some may be like their training status, so what they have done prior, both acutely but then chronically as well. Their psychological status, so we sort of talked about that earlier. What are their beliefs about an exercise? How well do they cope with stress above the shoulders? And just like their beliefs about life itself. Are they a positive person? Do they sort of paint everything in a bit of a negative brush? Health status, nutrition, hydration, sleep. Genetics a little bit, like environment. So again, having a good training partner may lead to more positive outcomes. So which then finally takes me back to the SRA curve. Like we are like anti-fragile. We are anti-fragile beings where we thrive in response to volatility. Too much volatility breaks us, but too little, you know, don't use it, you lose it. Was it 72 hours? There's no more stimulus for muscle protein synthesis, so we start to get weaker. So it's about finding an optimal amount of stress, not just weight on the bar, tension on the muscle, but sort of delicately balancing it against all of life's other stresses as well. And my last piece on how we do that, it may be an RPE piece, which will then automatically regulate you to, you know, that day. You know, every day is a new person. That may automatically regulate you to where you are on that day. The best example I can think of it is anyone done a lift on one day and it's flown, but then you've done it a few days later and it's just stapled to the ground. And that's a really good example of every day's a new person. Maybe you're not weaker, maybe you just got more load on the system because of, who knows. I'm going to leave it at that. I could have gone on for another 10 minutes, but I won't.
I wish you did.
Could have, but I won't.
Great.
Thank you.
You're so good at speaking, bro.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Fluent.
You're good at speaking.
You remind me of Owen Wilson.
Yeah? In what way?
I don't know, your enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very engaging.
Good. Thank you.
Wow.
Wow. Just playing Star Wars. Wow. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
So if someone on the floor asks you, like a new client, they're like, is it bad if I round my back? How do you explain that succinctly to them? Or like, how would you explain it to them in a way that, how would you just do it?
I would ask them what's their experience lifting with a rounded back like. Are they strong in that position? Do they have the mobility to get into that position? Do they have the strength to sort of control it and then not move into other positions? I just think context is critical. We just need more information. Rounding back might be bad for someone, just based on training experience, internal load, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, we just need more info.
Yeah. I get that a lot with clients.
Yeah.
Let's ask like those kind of questions.
Yeah. I would ask more questions first. Yeah. What are their beliefs about lifting with a rounded back? That'll do.